Members, take your seats. After 2 years, just shy of a few days, we are back. We're going to go over a few things first. Paul's going to go over a few things, and then we're actually going to get into a discussion, and there will be some people doing things they shouldn't do so that you'll know you shouldn't do them. But this is kind of like a dry run for a number of reasons, making sure, they've tested the machines and making sure all the machines and everything work, the voting machines, and Paul will explain about everything else.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First off, welcome back to your chamber. The purpose of today, especially for many of our new members, this is your first time being in Representatives Hall in this kind of setting. So really what we wanted to do is sort of have a discussion about decorum in the chamber, talk about some procedural things and that sort of thing. A few housekeeping things. So first off, welcome to those that are tuning in online via our streaming video. A couple points I want to make just for those that are watching online, but also for you here if you desire to watch later on. We're testing some different angles, so you might notice that during the course of this, there's going to be some close-ups and there's going to be some far back shots, and it's because we're trying to figure out the best way to stream. I will say that this is the first time that we're going to see cameras and the definition of the cameras in this chamber the way they are, and it's pretty amazing. So I hope you enjoy what you're going to see. That being said, if any of our members are watching, you have my cell phone number, and if you'd like to text me and ask questions, please do. We will address those in the course of the day. I've given my number out so many times over social media and in streaming service, I feel like I've done it enough. I just don't want to do it anymore. So a couple things. First off, when you're in the chamber, and I hope you're all in your correct seats, the first thing you do is you push your white button and you turn your voting stations on. And what you can't see is that from our standpoint, your seats that are black when they're off are turning on to a yellow color so that we know you're here. Now this helps us, and we can determine, especially during voting, if you're not in your seat, I look down and I know, and then I look over to you and see you're not there, so I'm not going to call on you when the vote ends. This is a lot different than the clicker system we've been using because I don't know where you were seated in those ginormous places, so I kind of had to go by the alphabetical list. This is a seating chart with your actual seat assigned and those things. So this is helpful for a myriad of reasons. When we begin the session day, the speaker usually starts by banging the gavel and saying, "Members, please take your seat." The Sergeant-at-Arms will encourage members to take their seats, and we begin from there. The thing to remember is that once we start going in terms of our official opening with the prayer, pledge, and anthem, the doors are closed, and the sergeants stay at the doors, and you don't leave or come in during that time because it's sort of a quiet time in the chamber. After we go through those three things, then members can come in and go as they please. So that is just a point for clarification. Any questions on those things so far? Good. This is a very big gavel, and when it gets swung down, especially when the speaker is banging it, that means shh. It means that the speaker is bringing the room to order. And by bringing the room to order, that means all of you need to come to order. When the speaker bangs the gavel because it's noisy in here, as we've seen numerous times at our off-site sessions, it's because it's too noisy, and the members who are speaking at these two parts of the well are entitled to do so, and we all owe our attention to them. And again, this is a smaller room. If you're sitting up in the corner or you're standing in the back, the acoustics in this room are such that everything comes right back down to here. So the speaker hears it, and every speaker I've ever worked for hears it and gets angry at the podiums. So please just remember that. If Sergeant at Arms comes to you and asks you to take your conversation out in the hallway, it's a pretty good idea to do that. We do have, if you didn't get handouts, there are some handouts up front. I just want to go over those real quick. The first one is an evacuation plan or an emergency exit type situation. It has where you're seated in the chamber, please exit one of those exit ways if we are going through, whether there's a fire emergency or something along those lines. That's how we should exit the chamber, so please pay attention to that. The other form is one of my favorite forms, and it says parliamentary inquiry at the top of it. And it kind of gives you a brief outline of a parliamentary inquiry and how it should be done. I would just notice as well, when we were at our last session day, we had several very long parliamentary inquiries, and then Representative Weber gave one of the best parliamentary inquiries I've heard in a while, and I would just mention, I don't even remember what the topic was, but it was 2 sentences. It was to the point. It said exactly what it needed to be said, and she went and sat down. And that is a purpose of a parliamentary inquiry. It is not to have a further debate on the bill. A parliamentary, and I think back just to 20 years ago when I first got here as a kid, the parliamentary inquiries were usually done by committee chairs, ranking members, leadership team folks. They would get up, they would make their 2 points, and they would sit down. And most of the time it was because members who hadn't been in the chamber were coming back in, and they were sort of getting their information as a quick, memory bouncer. So just a quick point on parliamentary inquiries, because we've gone on very long on those things lately, and I think we need to cull it back. The other form I have for you here is called Paul's Parliamentary Points, and I'm a fan of alliteration, if you couldn't tell. These are all points from either House rules, from the Constitution, or from Mason's Manual, and as well as a few points of our own custom usage and precedent. And you don't need to look at them now, but they're just some of the reminders about how we behave on the floor, specifically not referring to people by name. Representative Notter would not stand up here and say, "Hi, Lori," because that's not appropriate. Apologies, Representative Sanborn. So that there are just points like that for your edification, and also just for, we want to encourage a good decorous behavior on the floor. A couple of other points that we've encountered a lot over the past couple of years that the speaker asked me to sort of cover. We do not have a dress code in the New Hampshire House of Representatives. We've not really needed to necessarily. Everybody, I think, has a fairly fundamental understanding of sort of a business type dress for when you are on the floor, especially of the House. But I always like to say, please dress in a manner that is respectful of the fact that you are sitting in the same room as a member 200 years ago. You're sitting as a representative for a legislative body that has existed since the 1680s. So that's why that's how I've always encouraged people in terms of their dress on the floor. So we'll leave it at that. I think those are some of the points that the speaker and I kind of briefly touched on, but we do have a brief mock session we're going to go through, but this is also an opportunity to talk about questions that you might have about being in here. Some little nitpicky things, for example, you can't eat food in here, folks. This is a no-food zone. So if you have food, you really shouldn't do it in the ante rooms, but if you have food, I saw my good friend Representative Wilhelm over here. A couple years ago when Representative Wilhelm was a freshman member, he came in with a very large box of Cheez-Its. Now, he is a young dad like myself, and we have to have Cheez-Its in supply at our homes all the time. But I reminded him when he posted his picture on Twitter that he should probably leave those in his mailbox in the back, and he graciously complied. So just little things like that. Water is acceptable in this room. As a matter of fact, in a couple of months when it's pretty warm in here, there will be coolers that will be set up in the back with multiple bottles of water so that you can remain hydrated, because your safety is our concern. Especially as many of you recall at our last session day, the safety of our members is paramount. We do have medical people on site to assess situations and deal with situations as needed. We have had medical issues in this room in the past, but we have not just members of staff here, but we also have folks on our Sergeant-at-Arms staff as well that are EMTs and as well as additional members as well. There are many members that are volunteer firefighters and EMTs in their own communities, and we'll certainly encourage their assistance if need be. Any questions so far? Okay, Mr. Speaker.
I said this at our last session, and I'll say it again when we meet next week. The Decorum in Bedford and Manchester was probably close to despicable by our members. And I'm not picking on one side or the other side. The amount of noise, the amount of conversations that were happening on both sides of the aisle was absolutely 100% unacceptable. I thought I was going to break the podium a couple times when I brought the gavel down, but it only lasted for a couple minutes. Let me make it clear, that will not be tolerated in here. I know back when we were over to the UNH ring, Speaker Shurtleff had the same problem, and we've had the same problem now for 2 years since our last session day, when we spent 19 hours in this chamber on March 13th. So the decorum will be enforced. And we'll have some other incidences that are going to be perpetrated on purpose to make sure that everybody understands that you don't do that. And as far as the debate goes, we picked a subject matter that we hope you will get some enjoyment out of it, but at the same time, realize how a debate should be run. So with that, I mean, we're going to go right through it. The House will come to order. The chair recognizes the member from Charlestown, Representative Stephen Smith, who moves the House adjourn from the session of December 31st, 1999. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the House is adjourned. Then we will go to a prayer by House Clerk Paul C. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this is just a reminder, this is, members will rise for the prayer, and this is not you don't have to participate. Similarly, one other thing, before we get too far into it, in a moment when we recognize guests for our newer members, after we recognize the guests, you should stand and turn to the gallery and applaud them and welcome them to the house. So, thank you. Divine Creator of all, we offer thanks for bringing these members together to enhance their experience in the best calling ever known. We ask for your blessing on all members unable to be with us today, remembering especially our good friend, the Honorable Rennie Cushing. In your name we pray, amen.
The chair now recognizes a member from Hudson, Representative Green, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The House will attend to requests for leaves of absence.
Mr. Speaker, the day, illness, Representatives Cleaver, Gold, Mason, Myler, and Pantelakis. The day, important business, Representatives Connors, Cody, DePalma, Mullen, O'Hearn, Pickering, and Southworth. The day, illness in the family, Representative Amanda Bolden.
The House will attend to the introduction of guests.
Mr. Speaker, please welcome Adam Sandler and Steven Tyler, our pages for the day.
So, folks, just real quick, I apologize, I should have mentioned that before. On days that we have pages, they're seated down here, and we announce them first. And please, after we announce the pages, please do give them a courtesy of applause. Then sit, because then we're going to get into the guests. And I will just mention, too, that sometimes after the guests and you seat, we will have additional special guests as we do today.
Mr. Speaker, please also welcome Robert Frost, guest of Representative McGuire, J.D. Salinger, guest of Representative Stephen Smith, General John Stark, guest of Representative Weiler, the Honorable Franklin Pierce, former member from Hillsborough, guest of the Speaker. They are with us in the gallery today.
Welcome to the New Hampshire House.
Mr. Speaker, also, please welcome our special guest, the Honorable Daniel Webster, the 14th and 19th United States Secretary of State, guest of the House. He is with us in the gallery today.
The House will now attend to the consent calendar. Are there any bills to be removed? There being none, Representative Osborne moves that the consent calendar, the relevant amendments as printed in the day's House record, be adopted. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the consent calendar is adopted. The House will now attend to the regular calendar. The majority of the Committee on Resources, Recreation, and Development, to which was referred House Bill 9, creating a commission to study the cream filling in Oreo cookies. Having considered the same, report the same with a recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative McGuire for the majority. Minority of the committee, having considered the same and being unable to agree with the majority, report with the following resolution that the bill be found inexpedient to legislate. Representative Stephen Smith for the minority. The question is on the adoption of the majority report of ought to pass. The member from Charlestown is recognized to speak against the majority report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, this bill was only filed because of the Washington, D.C. Oreo lobby and the sponsor's deep ties and addiction to double stuffs.
You're out of order. Please confine yourself to the subject matter.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, Carol.
Second mistake, you do not refer to a member by name. Now you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I apologize to the Speaker of the House and my good friend from Epsom for my lapse in judgment, and it will not happen again. So, study. Why would you study? Have you even tried these things? They're delicious. There is nothing to study.
The member will suspend. The member knows that we do not use props of any form in the New Hampshire House.
So, sorry, you want them? At any rate, study. So, what will happen when we create the study commission? You'll have a commission, they'll meet, right? We'll probably live stream it. What does that mean? Commission's on TV. What are they talking about? Oreo cookies. I'm against corporate welfare. There's no way we're going to have state-sponsored Oreo commercials. So, for me, for you, and for the Girl Scouts, please vote against this bill.
The House will be in order. Another point that got a little bit out of hand while we were off-site is the House does not show emotion one way or the other on any subject matter. No booing, no yaying, no clapping, no showing of emotion of any kind. Chair recognizes the member from Epsom, Representative McGuire, to speak in favor of the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, my committee has never been in favor of unnecessary study committees. They're a waste of our time. However, in this case, the bipartisan majority of the committee agreed that this was a topic they could really sink their teeth into. We all agreed that this deserved study, not just on the techniques, but also on the important issue of dunking. Because, as you know, the classic dunk is milk, but that tends to be discriminatory to our lactose intolerant constituents, and therefore we needed to consider other options. Red wine, of course, but do you use Merlot or Hardy Burgundy or what? I've heard rumors of white wine, but that's just not the New Hampshire way. So we have all these questions, and the reason for a commission, rather than just studying it in our own committee, is that we need people from other committees who have knowledge that we don't. We need people from commerce. We need people from environment and agriculture, since they deal with the Division of Agriculture, Markets, and Food, and there are allegations that Oreos are, in fact, food. We also need to have people from the Committee on Legislative Administration to deal with other allegations of undue influence due to campaign contributions from Big Cookie. That's an important issue throughout New Hampshire. And in order for fair and honest elections, we need to study the issue and settle it once and for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Why does a member rise? Does a member yield to questions?
Yes.
The member may inquire. Before you go point your point, just so everybody knows, especially for the freshmen, when we were out of chamber, you asked from a microphone wherever you were in the complex. If you're going to ask a question in the chamber, you must come down to the podium and ask the question. You can't ask it from your seat. Member may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, would you believe that my favorite is the Samoas?
Thank you for the question. I have no way of knowing what your favorite is.
The question being the majority committee report of ought to pass. A roll call has been requested. Is that sufficiently seconded? It is sufficiently seconded. This will be a roll call vote. That roll call was requested by Representative Huff. This will be a roll call vote. The question is on the majority report of ought to pass on House Bill 9. The chair recognizes the member from Charleston for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you know, as I know, that this bill creates a commission to study something that we know doesn't need to be studied because everybody already loves Oreo cookies, especially the double-stuffed ones. And since I know that it doesn't matter what's in the cream filling because it tastes great, and because study commissions are a waste of time, and we have so many of them bogging down our process, and we all know they're a joke anyway.
State your point of order.
Mr. Speaker, this is not a parliamentary inquiry. The member is making a speech and is referring to things which should not be referred to on the floor of the House.
The member is correct. The member will do a proper parliamentary inquiry.
I am so embarrassed. Okay, thanks, Mr. Speaker. If you know, as I know, that we shouldn't study any...
State your point of order.
Parliamentary inquiry, these are interesting this time around. Starting a parliamentary inquiry with the words, "if you know, as I know," is incorrect. Would the Speaker kindly instruct the member on the appropriate way to start a parliamentary inquiry?
The proper start of a parliamentary inquiry is if I know. Standing up here, I know nothing.
Oh, this hurts. Okay.
Maybe that was a little bit of exaggeration, but you do not refer to what I might know. It's what you know.
I apologize, Mr. Speaker. If I know that we shouldn't study anything else this year because we're up to our eyeballs in work, would I press the red button to vote down this dumb recommendation?
Not quite a proper ending, Representative, but the chair recognizes Representative Nadine Wong for a parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, if I know that the filling in Oreo cookies should be studied so that our constituents receive the nutritional information they need to serve their families a quality cream-filled delight, and Mr. Speaker, if I know this is simply a study commission that does not require any changes to our laws, would I then press the green button to study this important matter?
Thank you for a proper parliamentary inquiry. This will be a roll call vote. Are we ready to go? This will be a roll call vote. If you're in favor of House Bill 9 with the report of ought to pass, you will press the green button. If you're opposed, you will press the red button. Voting stations are open for 30 seconds.
This is another point, folks. In this chamber, once you hit the end of that 30 seconds, you can't vote anymore. So if you haven't voted in that 30 seconds, I'm going to call your name. I understand. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these buttons haven't been pushed in a couple of years, so there might be some stickiness going on. So in those cases, I will, set your vote for you. I got yours, Representative. Representative Bernardi? I understand. So just a thumbs, when I call you, just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Have all members present had a chance to vote? House will attend to the state of the vote. "14 voting yea, 27 voting nay. The motion on Oreo cookies fails. For what purpose does a member rise? State your motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move an expedient to legislate.
The motion before us is inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 9. You want to try this? I was going to say, do you want to try the session? You want to try it again?
We can.
All right. A division has been requested, so the motion before us is ITL. This is a division vote. They're resetting it right now. Trying to get all the kinks out of this today so we don't have to worry about it next week. For what purpose does a member rise? There's a motion on the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I move to table the motion. No? I recall that motion, Mr. Speaker.
Good choice. This is a division vote. The motion before us is inexpedient to legislate. If you're in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations are open for 30 seconds.
Just to clarify, so if you don't vote in that 30 seconds, I'm going to call your name, and you have to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down because I'm going to cast a vote for you. If you are in the chamber, you have to vote. We don't abstain in the New Hampshire House, okay? I'm voting for you. I voted on your behalf because you didn't push your button. That's why I need the thumbs up or the thumbs down. No problem. So the question is, if you're in the middle of the 30 seconds, can you change your mind and switch? By all means, if you can play if you want to and choose, go back and forth. I would just be mindful at the end of that 30 seconds, whatever is recorded is recorded. We have had members who have tried to play beat the clock and wait until the very last second, and the buzzer gets them, and they didn't vote, and so then I have to call their name, and people go, ooh. Yeah. Yes, sir. So, Representative Stapleton asked if he pushed the wrong button and the bell goes off and the speaker, before the speaker has stated the vote or after the speaker has stated the vote? If the speaker has not announced the vote, so if I'm checking with other people, and because I see okay, I see a couple yellows on, so that means I'm looking around to see if they voted or not. If you need to get my attention in that brief, this is a very brief period, so before the speaker states the vote, if you come up very quickly, you shouldn't even leave your seat. You're not supposed to leave your seat until the speaker states the vote. So if you get my attention or whatever, I will change it, but that really should not happen. Because once that bell rings and you've voted, it's hard to unring bells. In terms of divisions, I would just be mindful that divisions are not recorded. The number is reported, but the roll call, the vote is not recorded. So you could ask for reconsideration if you were on the prevailing side, if you needed to. If you were not, then you cannot move reconsideration. I really don't advise that. The onus, I don't mean to be rude, but the onus is on you to know how you're voting. Once when that bell has rung, I mean, you really that should be it. If not, there is a mechanism for you to note in the journal that you voted incorrectly and you wish to be recorded as having voted the other way. That is a mechanism that we put in the journal as a courtesy to members. So even if, for example, you had an emergency and needed to step out in the hallway to take a phone call, and you did not vote, but if you had, you would have voted this way. I have a green sheet. Teresa, down here, our journal clerk, the best journal clerk, she's got this little green slip, and it says that you either voted or you didn't vote, and you voted this way, but you meant to vote this way. And we'll put that in the journal, so if one of your constituents gets mad at you, you can call them up and just say, no, I meant to do this. I was talking with my neighbor and not paying attention.
One other point, we saw a lot of moving around in the outside venues that we were at, people walking around in that nature. When we're in this chamber, you will remain in your seats until the end of the vote. And once I call the vote, then you could get up. But everybody should remain in their seats. It isn't a time to get up and start walking around and talking until after the, I call the vote. Forgot this part. Have all members in the chamber voted that were eligible to vote? The House will attend to the state of the vote. $30 voting yea, 11 voting nay. The member does not walk in front of the speaker's podium.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. May I be acknowledged for unanimous consent.
Yes.
I'd like to apologize to the House for breaking the decorum. My old seat last term was 4-4. I was 4x4 then, and I left a pack of gum in my seat, and I just wondered if it was still there. So I apologize to the Speaker and to the House.
That is one of the instances that does happen occasionally, where somebody will walk in front of the podium, and in many cases it's a freshman, and that is an absolute no-no. So for all of you freshmen that things were a little bit convoluted in our other locations, where you had to come up to have your clicker checked or something like that, that doesn't happen in the chamber. You do not walk in front of the podium here. You go up and around if you have to come down, or vice versa. There's no debate on this one, so I'm just going to read through it as if, so you'll know what a regular voice vote is. Committee on Finance, to which was referred House Bill 99 FNAL, an act making appropriations to the Department of Food and Agriculture to promote extra milk production to go with cookies. Having considered the same, report the same with the following resolution that the bill be inexpedient to legislate. President Weiler for the committee. Question before the House is the adoption of the committee report of inexpedient to legislate. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. I was truly unsure what the vote was. I will tell you, normally in this chamber, unlike our outside venues, where it was very hard to determine the ayes and the nays, that one I really truly couldn't determine. It was about equal. So we'll test the system one more time and have a division vote. If you're in favor, this is the motion before us is inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 99. This is a division vote. If you're in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations are open for 30 seconds.
Just a very quick note there, too, for those of you who saw Representative Nodder came in the middle of a vote, and our Sergeant-at-Arms just kicked her out. So once we're in the voting mode, nobody in, nobody out.
If all members present had an opportunity to vote, House will attend to the state of the vote. 25 voting yea, 12 voting nay. It honestly didn't sound like that. I mean, that's an... The motion was inexpedient to legislate. Got to get used to being back up here myself. That's something that I would recommend. A lot of times when we do voice votes, a lot of people don't vote, and it can get very convoluted sometimes. So I would strongly suggest that when the question is put to you, you do express your opinion one way or the other on a voice vote. But it's a lot easier to determine in this chamber than it was outside. It was very difficult because the room was so big on both over in Bedford and at UNH and Manchester. We don't need to do the next one, do we? Yeah. We had one more, but again, I don't think we need to get into one more debate. We are now at the point where the House will attend to announcements.
No. Third reading motion first, sorry.
Oh. The chair recognizes the member from Charlestown, Representative Stephen Smith, for the third reading motion. It should be Representative Osborne. The question...
Haven't got to do it from here before. This is awesome. Hey, resolved that the House now adjourn from the early session, that the business of the late session be in order at the present time, that the reading of bills be by title only and resolutions by captions only, and that all bills ordered to third reading be read a third time by this resolution, and that all titles of bills be the same as adopted, and that they be passed at the present time, and when the House adjourns, it be to meet Wednesday, December 31st, 1999 at 10 a.m.
Question is on the third reading motion. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Now the House will attend to announcements. Do we have any? Chair recognizes the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For those members who have not been here in a while, please make sure to check your mailboxes and empty them on your way home this afternoon. Thank you.
The House will now attend to a request for unanimous consent. And Chair recognizes Representative Stephen Smith for the purpose of an apology. For all of them.
Yeah, so I apologize to you, Mr. Speaker, and to the House for being the worst example of a representative that I've seen in quite some time. But, you know, it matters. Reverence for the chamber. Think of the people that have stood here. There's a marker out front that says, General Lafayette was welcomed in this room in 1825, and when I first got here in 2010, realizing that, I thought, I try to need to be a better me when I'm in this room and be worthy of the chamber. And I hope all of you feel that too. And my sincerity in that, and understand how painful this exercise was for me today.
Representative Osborne moves that the House stand in recess for the purpose of introduction of bills, enrolled bills, amendments, enrolled bills, reports, and receiving messages. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The House is in recess until Thursday, March 10th, 2022, 9 a.m. Yeah, we don't need that. So before we leave, what we tried to do today is, especially for the freshmen, is to go over how we do things in the chamber. And I know it's very similar as to what we did outside, but there is quite a bit of difference once you're sitting in here than when we're in a 55 or 35,000 square foot room. Decorum is absolutely necessary for us to get through our business. And as I said earlier, it will be enforced. And PIs will be enforced. No more novels, no more books being read, no more discussions. A PI is a PI, and we saw Representative Weber deliver a perfect one over in Manchester a couple of weeks ago. That's what a proper PI is. That's what it was. They've gotten out of hand over the past few years, and we're going to go back to doing proper PIs. So what I'd like to do now is open it up to questions for anybody that might have a question for myself, the clerk, majority leader, the deputy speaker. The clerk does have a couple of more quick points to go over.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did get a couple of text messages out during the course of this, as we sort of expected. One thing certainly that has been a constant sort of annoyance for me is cell phones going off during session. For those of you that know me, I get a lot of text messages. I get a lot of messages on my phone, but I've got I've switched it off so that it's just the vibrate. If it's in my pocket or if it's in my shirt pocket, I'm gonna feel it, but I don't disturb the session by hearing so please silence your cell phones during session. Another thing, political paraphernalia at the well. No fly zone. We don't wear, so I know that there are certain elements that members wear from time to time, campaign pins, campaign buttons. What you have on your lapel, you see here, I've got the little seal of New Hampshire. If you have a campaign pin like that, it's never been something where you're going to be crucified. But if you come up here wearing a shirt like this, that has a political statement or a campaign slogan or whatever, that's not acceptable in the well. Yellow scarves are not acceptable for speaking in the well. That has long been the policy under both Republican and Democratic administrations. So I just make those points. Hats. Gentlemen do not wear hats in the chamber. This also applies for when we're holding committee hearings in here as well. And if we have folks that are coming in and testifying, they need to understand that they are still in Representatives Hall, and those same customs apply. Gentle ladies do wear hats, and there is no prohibition on that. We do have a member, a male member, who has undergone head surgery and has permission of the speaker to wear a hat because of exposure. So that is, in those situations, please see the speaker. We will accommodate those things. Additional accommodations. From time to time, members, for whatever reason, break their legs around here like it's going out of style. And what happens is, as you know, in your seats, it's sometimes hard to get in, get out, and that sort of thing. So what we will do, if you coordinate with myself, the Speaker's office, we will set up a chair, usually in the back of Division 1 or 5, for those members, where they can stretch out and spread out, and I will just know to look for them during each recorded vote so that I can record their up or down during session. So please, if something like that happens, please let us know. I think that's all I have for you now, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Smith, do you have anything?
So, as you saw, Representative Nodder, I would just mention Representative Nodder took one for the team in crossing the well earlier. She was hijacked into doing that, and she was a little concerned because she didn't want to be called out, but she's a trooper. So, thank you for that. I would just mention that our custom is. It's actually more than a custom. It is in Masons that no one crosses in front of the speaker during the session. You will oftentimes see at the beginning of the day or coming back from lunch, if we're getting ready and we have some members who are moving a little little slowly, the speaker might step down to the floor so that the member can do so without voiding the custom. Okay, I have another text message. Sorry, Representative, I'll be right there. I had a question asked, should they push their white button to turn off their seat if they're going to use the restroom? That helps us out. It does help us out, so if you do need to go use the restroom, if you turn off your station, that means that I'm not looking for you when the vote is concluded. So that is helpful if you are able to do that. If not, we're not going to send out the police, don't worry. Representative Weber.
What's the policy on the aisles? Because I have seen it done both ways, and I have had to apologize for doing it myself. If I in my first term, we were only ever allowed to use the aisle between 4 and 5 and the aisle between 1 and 2. And in later terms, the two middle aisles have been used, but I know at least at one point I was required to apologize for walking down the aisle when somebody was standing here and speaking. I didn't cross in front of the speaker, but I did certainly obstruct the podium. But I have also seen times when that has not been called out, so I just wondered what the current policy was on the aisles.
Thank you very much, Representative. That is a perfect question. When members are speaking at the well from either podium, you should not come down the aisle to either go out this door or to go to that corner while the member is speaking, because you are, especially now with our cameras where we are going to be having more of a focused angle, it is disrespectful to the member that is speaking because you are cutting off their speech. If you are in the first row and need to go out that way to use the facilities, that's a different story. You're going out, but to come down in front and cut off, it is disrespectful to the member speaking. I have another one as a request for our Sergeant-at-Arms teams. We issue every one of you a security pin and a name tag. Granted, some of you received your name tag 30 years ago, so you might not have one anymore, but we do give out security pins at the beginning of each session. For our Sergeant-at-Arms purposes, for our doorkeepers at the back and other folks, if you could wear an identifying badge, name badge, or your pin, it does help in terms of identifying and trying to keep out other folks. Especially while we were off-site, there were frequent cases where non-members were coming onto the floor. And in some instances, this actually happened during session. And that is a strict no-no. The only people that are allowed on the floor are the members, staff, and press, but even press is limited to where they're supposed to be. So please, it would be helpful to our team if you could do that. Let's see. I'm sorry? This year's color was green. So if you should have a green pin. If you don't, let's talk afterward. Okay.
I hope everybody got something out of today. I hope that next week is as successful as today was, and that we observe the proper decorum. And if I'd asked both the minority and the majority to try and convey that to the members during their caucuses, and I'm sure will be coming up. Clerk's got one more thing.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, the Chief of Staff, who cares greatly about you, wants to make sure that you've signed in to get your mileage for today for being here. So please do sign in up in the Speaker's office after the event's over so that you can get your mileage for today. Thank you.
Has anybody got any questions or comments that they'd like to make? Representative Knott?
Just very simply, when you come to the well, the first thing you should do is adjust the mic so that we don't have to hear this, like, oh, can't hear you. Oh, how about now? Now, can you hear me now? Just get in the habit. Get in the habit of pulling it right down to your mouth, the very first thing.
Yes. Yeah, at the end of the day, yes. Steve, got anything else? Lucy, you got anything? I was reminded by the clerk that I was just wrong. It should have been Representative Smith and Representative Weber. And I apologize to the two members. See?
Mr. Speaker, just another reminder, if you need to leave during the session day, normally when we were off-site, I told you to text me when you were leaving. When you're leaving, if you could, please check out with me up here, because we will actually note the time you're leaving, and we can excuse your votes going forward. Okay, so please do note when you're leaving. If you have to go quickly and you don't have time to stop by and see me, you can stop by the Speaker's office and sign out at that time as well. We'll coordinate, but when you're ready to go, if you need to go during the day, if you want your votes to show online as excused, please do sign out so that we can excuse those votes. The other thing, too, just as a reminder, especially for those watching at home, if you are not going to be in session, please call the clerk's office. Please email the clerk's office. We are very friendly with our friends in the two party offices. However, sometimes in the myriad of emails that we get between the three offices, we don't always get that communication if somebody's not going to be in session. So it is important that you call or email the clerk's office so that we can excuse you for the day as needed. I did have one other question about bringing bags, briefcases, etc. to your seat. As you can tell, we don't have desks here in New Hampshire. We don't have a ton of room beyond the spaces here in the chamber, and your mailboxes in back. If you have a briefcase, if you have an assigned locker, feel free to leave your briefcase there. But certainly if you're carrying an old school barrister bag, you're not going to be able to store it under your seat in front of you or in the overhead bins above you. So. Yes, I will. There was a question about lockers. If you come upstairs and see us, we will talk about that and see if there are any still available.
Going once, twice? John, Representative, I apologize again.
And this is a question, it's sort of, I know it's a little bit off topic, but it's an indirect question. A lot of us park in the Store Street parking garage. And I was there today and I noticed there's been necessary renovations, and I know being on the Public Works and Highways Committee, I'm very familiar with that issue. By next Thursday, I've noticed construction equipment in some of the parking spaces. Is that garage going to be totally ready for members who park in that garage? And because I don't want anybody being late for our first session.
It is going to be as ready as we can make it, Representative.
Okay. And another question, too, is there going to be security over there? Another thing I've noticed, seems like there's a lot of extra cars that are not represented. Sometimes when I've gone over, on days when I've had to come down here. Will security be there, make sure that keep out on the day that we're session? Because I think that's very important, because if all of us use our cars, those who, I know some of us park in the LOB and on the street, that you might have a problem with members not being able to park in stores if that's their assigned parking spot.
Yes. And we're also, I believe, we will have the shuttles reinstituted like we had 2 years ago.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that
Yeah,
information.
we're working on all of that. And we're also working on a new parking garage. If there is nothing else, yes. In the speaker's office upstairs. Yeah. There's a sheet up there in the receptionist's office that you can sign up for mileage.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to briefly mention too, a lot of times, as you can see, this is a working area down here. So you all know my staff, and if you don't, I'm going to reintroduce them to you. Mike is our assistant clerk. Mike is responsible for amending every piece of legislation as it's going along. He also not just amends legislation, but any time we change, if we adopt something, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that need to happen. He dockets the bills, etc. So that's what Mike is doing primarily during session. Paul is our bill status and calendar clerk. So Paul is running the voting system. Paul is also doing the bill status, so he is updating those dockets that appear online. And while he's not doing that, he's working on getting the calendar ready as well. So he's definitely busy, and he is, as you can tell, there's a computer here. He's operating the voting system from the floor, but he also has a laptop down here where he will be utilizing that for docketing and working on the calendar. And Teresa over here is our journal clerk, and she keeps track of everything. She makes sure that we're all honest. She makes sure that you're all honest, and especially me. And she's also the person that transcribes your debates. So please, if you're going to make a motion to put remarks in the permanent journal, if you have those remarks prepared ahead of time, please email them to us so that it will save her a significant amount of time and just copying and pasting versus trying to figure out a word. Now, that being said, I enjoy going into Teresa's office when she can't figure a word out, and we listen to it about 15 times, and then between the two of us, we can figure it out. I don't think there's ever been a word we haven't figured out, but it would help us in the long run. So we are working down here. That being said, when you need to come up and talk to us about something specific, if there's something specific that you need from them, please just make sure that it is what you need from them. If it's signing up on a bill or something along those lines, I've got all that stuff here. So come see me here. Especially if the Democratic leadership team needs me over here, I will come down and often talk to them there rather than making them come all the way up over and around here. But again, this is where I'm at if you need bill stuff, questions, etc. And again, you do know that you are able to text me and email me here on the phone, and I will answer that. Any other questions regarding that stuff? Thank you.
Just one more thing. Next Thursday will be the first time that we've been here as a body in 2 years. And we've had a lot of parking problems. If you do not have an assigned space in the LOB or on the street, you must park in Store Street. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and we'll see everybody at least next week, if not sooner.